So we are on, we are live. Hello, Pamela. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our regular session with Pamela. Pamela is going to talk about states of reading. So welcome, Pamela. So we can start.
Okay.
You can share your screen.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk about the stages of reading and what goes into a reading lesson and why. So this one I have given before, but maybe not everybody has seen it, and it's always great to have a refresher. Maybe we'll have different questions this time. Maybe I'll focus a little bit on something a little bit different this time. So reading skills is a skill by itself. So if we talk about language skills and we're talking about the 4 skills, there's different things to focus on from speaking, reading, writing, and listening. So last week we did listening skills, and we'll also, it's good to review this and to revisit it, especially after looking at listening skills, because we can look at what is so similar about the steps and what the similar objectives and goals are in using materials for reading, and how that applies to listening. Because they are both they're both receptive skills versus productive. So we're going to talk about, first off, what is the difference between developing a skill in order to learn how to read and learn how to understand any passage that you come across versus understanding a particular passage in the moment. So instead of saying that it's really important that the student understands the content of this, and so we're going to translate everything for them or translate a lot of it, the point isn't necessarily what is in the content. It's not a history course. It's not a science or something where the content is important. What is important is how to get there, is how to use your language skills, your foreign language skills, in order to figure out something new, that whatever the passage is. So the goal in learning the new language is to develop skills within that new language and the ability to become an independent user of the language. So translating the content of the material does not accomplish the goals of developing reading skills or helping the student figure out new words when working alone. So we want to give them these skills to, when they have something new that they are reading, in how do they figure it out on their own? So just giving them the reading and then the translation is not developing those skills. And understand that working with a new text will be part of the learning process. So we don't expect perfection from the start. We want mistakes, we want confusion, we want thinking, we want pauses in our, when we are asked a question. We want all of that to be part of the process. It's okay to be a little bit slow and really think and process it, and then they know that, you know, that they are really using their own, you know, thinking skills and using their own effort to figure out these things rather than just having the answer given to them. So really working through that and giving them the tools they need to try to understand as much as they can from new texts, and just like listening from new listening materials in the future is what we want to develop in them. So how do we do that? The first step is to choose the material that is level appropriate. So the same questions that I got about, well, what if you have them listen to something multiple times and they still don't get it? Well, that's probably too high of a level for them then. So you want to make sure that it's the level and the length is appropriate. So you don't want to give like 3 pages of a text, and you don't want it to have so many new words that they will inevitably be lost. 80% of the words should be something they've already seen. 20% should be new. Generally, the rule is that without any help, we should be able to read and understand a text that is 90% familiar and 10% new. So if I'm reading something that is very, very high level and it's from maybe a scientific book or something, and 10% of the words I don't know, I will still understand everything in there. So what we want to do in our class is to have 20% be new, because 10% they can figure out on their own, and then 10% we give them. So we want to have a good balance of that they can figure out some new things, and then there's a little bit of guided instruction as well. But only 20% new. If you give 50% new or 80% new or 100% new and think I'm teaching them something completely different, then again, that's too high a level. It's not appropriate for them to learn. We should, just like I mentioned in the listening exercises workshop last week, include a combination of material that is meant for foreign language education and some materials that are meant for native English speakers. So educational and authentic materials. So remember, I mentioned that there are pros and cons of both. So the educational material is not authentic. It is not something that native English speakers consume regularly, but it is geared towards the level that your students are. It's clear. It doesn't involve too many new things as far as grammar and vocabulary and maybe slang or really particular kind of regional things. So that's good. And it also will coincide with whatever the exercises are in your books, which is also good. As I mentioned last week, it's less work for you. But it is not necessarily native speech. It's not necessarily natural writings. Authentic materials are good, but they might have some of those things as well. Some maybe slang stuff, maybe it's not as clear, maybe there's a little bit, maybe the vocabulary is too high or the grammar structures they haven't seen before. But authentic is what you are training them to do, because we are training them not to just read textbooks, but to read newspaper articles and novels and biographies and anything that they will come across in the real world of reading things in English. As I mentioned, with everything in any kind of lesson plan, be sure that it is relevant and interesting. So remember that the R in our SMART goals is relevant, has to be useful to the students. They will not be motivated to do the work, to read the passage, to answer the questions, to comprehend what they're reading if they don't find it useful for their lives and interested in pursuing that activity. And also, as long as we are reading stuff and we are getting some information, I mentioned that it's not the point of the activity, it's not a history course, but as long as you are going to have something that, if it's about the world, if it's about current events or history or something, make sure the information is either up to date or include date of publication. Say, well, this is from this time. So I'm working with an article with a class that I'm working with right now, and it is from 1997. So part of that activity, part of that lesson plan is also to compare what you think might change in the years since then. So use that as part of your discussion, part of your extension activity, but make sure that you do pay attention to when something comes out. If it is outdated, that it's not, you're not saying this is how things are today. And make sure that the reading is integrated into your lesson plan. So introduce the topic at the beginning of the lesson. Maintain a coherent theme. So make sure that it is something that you're talking about something in the warm-up, and then you're talking about something else, and then you have the reading about something else. So everything should be leading up to the same kinds of things, so that all the vocabulary, all of the those topics of critical thinking, the questions they're thinking about, is all related to what text you will be reading. So this is the first stage. So we're talking about stages of reading, is introducing the topic at the beginning of class, making sure that you plan it so that everything is about that topic. Engage their interest. So you can have a prediction. As I mentioned in a couple different activities, you can have a picture. You can have some numbers. You can have the name of somebody. You can have a couple of questions. Any kind of thing that gets them trying to guess something, and then they will check if they are correct by reading. So one thing, as I mentioned, as I'm doing in this class that I'm co-teaching right now, is asking the students, I introduce the topic, and then I ask them what kind of question, what do they want to know about this? What do they already know, and what do they want to know? So right now we're working on the topic of homeless children in America. So I'm going to be asking them, what do you think about this, and what do you want to know? So these can usually follow in the WH questions. So you can either give your own questions to the students to look at, or you can have them create their own questions of what they want to know, and then they will be that much more interested in reading to find the answers to their own questions, because it's something that they're interested in. They came up with the questions. And yes, check for their previous knowledge on the topic. Always find out what they know before telling them something new. So if you find out that somebody in the class knows and the rest of the class doesn't, that's a great opportunity to have that student practice their language by telling the rest of the class. So always find out. If they know zero, then you can introduce it, but have them give their own ideas to you or to each other to begin with. So we always have a task when we are reading. There's always a reason we're reading a text. We can read to find basic information. We want to know when something starts. We want to know who the person was. We want to know why something happened, where it's going to happen, where it did happen. Again, the basic WH questions. We read for fun, for pleasure. So we read, I read a lot of movie reviews, because I'll watch a movie and then I want to read the review of the movie, whether it's good or bad. So this is fun for me, but I still have a task. I want to know what the reviewer thought about it, why they thought this, what did they see in the movie that I didn't? What were they thinking when they were watching the movie? So I already have a task even when I'm reading for pleasure. And of course, there's things like instructions, like the easiest one I can think of and the most common is maybe a recipe. So this is a fun thing, especially for kind of lower or low mid levels, is to work with recipes. First do this, then mix the tomatoes in, all those things. And you can also, I've worked with my lower level students with directions, how to get from their school to their home, or their school to the town square, or the town square to the village, or whatever. And they say, first go here and then go. And this is a great thing that you can do with your class as well. So there are different kinds of things that you have. You already have a reason that you are reading. So we're never going to just give the students a text and say, okay, read the text and tell me what you think about it. You have specific questions. They could be open-ended questions. They could be WH. They could be true, false. They could be multiple choice, anything that they are looking for specific information and then answering. So the two methods of reading tasks. This is just like last week. Think about what we do when we're doing listening. And if everybody was here, I would ask and call on people. Hopefully you're thinking about this. And the first one is skimming and the second one is scanning. So the skim is to find answers to questions about the general idea of the passage. What is it about? So as I mentioned, I love to read movie reviews. So the first thing I'm going to look for when I skim is, did the reviewer feel the same way that I did about the movie? So I watch a movie, I absolutely love the movie. I am like, wow, what else has this director done? This is amazing. I hope that it got really great reviews. I Google, I say reviews of this movie. The first one I click on, I want to know, did they feel the same way as me? So I'm going to skim and look for the positive words and look for all the phrases that would indicate that this is a positive review or a negative review. So that's the first one. Oh, okay, now I know. Oh, this director also loved it. I mean, this reviewer also loved it. They thought, oh yes, they liked the ending just like I did. They liked the characters. They thought that the main actress did a great job. All of those are about the general thing. Then you get those questions and then you do the scanning. So that is more specific. It's details. It relates to numbers and names and places, specific information. So a scanning might be, now that I know whether the reviewer enjoyed the film or not, I'm going to look for more information, maybe about what else the director has done. What is the name of the director? Oh, that's his name. Has he done other films? Oh, yes, these films. And what year? Oh, from these years. Okay, so he's been working since 1987. So I can watch films from his all the way from 1987. And then I can say, oh, was the 1987 film good? Did this reviewer like this? And I can scan and say, oh, no, he didn't like the first film, but he liked all the rest of them. So, and then what is his next film coming out? Maybe I look for the year of that. His next thing is coming out, next, or maybe he has a TV show that he's also directing, or a book that is coming out next year or just came out, and what the name of the book is, so that I could read about what he wrote about his experience with film. So that's the details, dates, names, amount of money, times, years, those kinds of things are the scanning. So that will be the second text assignment you give for reading the text. So skimming is the first time you give those questions. They read quickly. They look for those answers. They put those answers. You discuss. Always give the time to discuss in between. And then you give the scanning. These are also known as extensive and intensive, just like last week we talked about with listening as well. And find those answers the second time. So I'm going to give, here's an example here of the difference between this. This is from British Council, and I highly recommend them for any resources that you want to find, or anything that you want to find basic information, definitions of things, and further resources. They have a lot of great things. They are like the best of the English teaching English as a foreign language. So skimming and scanning. So skimming, reading a text quickly to find out the general theme, topic, or meaning. So as I mentioned, was the film good or bad in this reviewer's eyes, in their perspective, and why, and what did they like about it that made it good? Very general. So it's useful for pre-reading tasks or texts that don't need a lot of detailed attention. So again, this is like the first step. There's no need to read every word. So again, you just want to have, for example, in the example I'm giving, looking at things like phenomenal, groundbreaking, excellent, astonishing, you know, all of those words that mean really, really good, like excellent. So you don't need to read everything in the sentence. You already know that your answer is being, your question is being answered. And the focus here is improving speed of reading. So that's why we do this one first, because generally you're going to be looking at something quickly to see if maybe you want to read it or don't. So if I did the same thing with a review that said bad, they didn't like the film, and they gave reasons that I didn't really agree with, I would speed read that. I would skim, would say, oh, the director, it was boring. The actor was abysmal. He was unattractive, like any of those things that were bad, but I didn't think that it was useful for me to read. I would say, okay, I don't want to read that. So I'm not going to read the article the second time with more detail because I didn't find it useful the first time. But the first one, I felt that I wanted to read it a second time and get more of those details. So it's kind of the first step. Again, this is the second stage of your lesson after the warm-up and maybe some pre-teaching. Now we have this. So scanning is the third or fourth step. So this is more of that detail. So once I have decided this is a review I want to really read and pay attention to, I will read, you know, with a little bit more detail. It's reading it quickly in order to find specific information, for example, figures, meaning numbers, or names. It's useful for answering exam type questions, which ask for true, false, or to discover facts. So as I mentioned, I want to know what the director's name is, how many films he's made. So that's a figure, the number of films, when the films came out, those are numbers, what films will come out in the future, or books, or TV shows, what other projects they have. The objective is to search out relevant words, collocations, and the focus is more on lexis than general meaning, and to ignore irrelevant information. So I'm looking for the information that I want. So I first find out, oh, the director, this reviewer loves this film, and it's worth looking more detailed, looking into it in a more detailed way. And then the second time I look for those details. Well, what do I want to know now? So in either situation, I don't need to like be really, really slow. But I look for what is important the first time and then what is important the second time. And this is really good test prep as well. This is also how we teach students to prep for taking standardized tests for English, like the TOEFL and the IELTS, is that we don't teach them to read first sentence, second sentence. Like, you want to get the relevant information. So to get everything that's really important in the shortest amount of time, this is one of the ways that you will that they will be or you will be trained to read in if you are prepping to take one of those tests. So for example, we're going to say these are the skimming questions for a text that I'm going to show. So what is Earth Day? Why do people celebrate Earth Day? How do people celebrate Earth Day? So first we would have a discussion, of course, because we always want our class to be student-centered. We find out what they know already. Has anybody celebrated Earth Day? Do you know why you do? Maybe they don't know why, but they have before and they can tell us how. All of those things. Maybe we can do a little bit of predictions and they can try to answer the questions themselves. And then you go ahead and read. So we can look through here. So again, we don't have to read every single You definitely don't want them to read aloud. They read silently so that they can develop those speed reading skills. Also, reading aloud kind of makes them focus on pronouncing things correctly. And it's not really a great way to develop comprehension. So we don't really encourage students to read long texts aloud. Maybe they read out their homework answers. If you give them like a question and answer, that could be okay if they're showing that they understand something. But as far as a text like this, it's not so useful. So you want them to read this silently, time it, and then discuss the answers afterwards. So our questions, what is Earth Day? Okay, so we can kind of skip the first sentence. It is a day that is meant to raise awareness, appreciation about Earth's natural environment. So there we go. We know it's something to bring awareness about the Earth and nature. Why do people celebrate Earth Day? So, because it was, again, it's about the natural environment, general education, about saving the Earth, and now it's international. And how do people celebrate it? Activities focused on environmental issues. Communities celebrate Earth Week, an entire week. So it is turned from a day into a week. And how they do it is they focus on activities about environmental issues. So that's the general idea. Again, that can be done very fast. You just look for the important information, the words and terms that will give you those answers. Discuss, again, maybe have some more predictions about what you will find when you read it a little bit more intently. Then we go into our scanning. So this is the detailed numbers and specific information about history, about amounts of countries and things. So in what year and which country? So first we're going, what year? Here we go, the country. In the USA. The year I'm looking, I see a date here, 1970. So see how quick that was? In what year did Earth Day become international? Okay, so we're going to look, international in 1990. Okay, organized in 140 nations. And then how many countries? And then we already found that, yes. Now, globally, no, we found a new one. In Earth Day is celebrated in more than 175 countries every year. So that's it. So then you can really have more discussions and an extension exercise for the topic. So you can turn a reading lesson also into that productive lesson, either for speaking or for writing. You can extend it to productive skills, which is the fourth step in our lesson plan. And now we have the stages of reading, of introducing, pre-teaching, having the skimming assignment, having the scanning, and then having discussion or production related to that. So you always want to have it be very careful and very intentional what text you're using and how you're using it, because that's going to be really key for comprehension. We don't want to just give them a text and, they need some context for it, just like with the listening, right? We don't just give them a listening thing and say, well, tell me what this is about or what you think about it, right? You have to give a lot of guidance. And then eventually they'll learn to think about on their own what they are looking for or listening for when they have new material to read or to listen to. So with the new vocabulary, when you are first giving the text, you will, as a teacher, should know what kinds of words your students would be familiar with and which ones would be new to them. Again, we don't want more than 20% to be new. So you can either pre-teach some, you just take them on the board and do your whole, meaning, pronunciation form, lesson for the new words, use pictures, use synonyms, ask the students what they already know, what they think, or you can keep it in the text. You can go to the text and say, what do you think these particular words mean based on the context? That's usually better for higher levels. And that is also a great prep for any student who's going to be taking standardized tests or who's going into college level, university level English language, because you want them to start looking at new words within a sentence and trying to figure out what they mean on their own, because they won't have them pre-taught by them, by the teacher when they are working on their own usually. So you can choose a set no more than 7. So for example, you can say, national, international, awareness, environmental, organization, seminar, focused. Teach those first, and then when they read, they'll be used to them. Those are examples of ones that we saw in here that would be really important to really understand the whole thing. Or you can try to figure them out in the context of the text, as I mentioned. So do you also remember that I gave the presentation on guided discovery and the test, teach, test method? Find out what they know, then teach what they are lacking in, and then test again to see if they have retained it. So those are the stages, and then follow up with the productive skill. So discussion or writing. You can have, why is Earth Day important? Do you celebrate Earth Day? Why or why not? And what can you do on Earth Day, during Earth Week, and every day to help the environment? So this could actually turn into a project, or it could just be something that you come to like again and again a couple times in the during the semester. You can have them write ideas and put them on the walls. So you can have, on the walls, things to refer to. We always want to decorate the walls with student work, and especially with English, so that when they're looking around, they see, English sentences and new English words and things like that. So you can have that be part of it. The students really love producing their own stuff and seeing their own work also being displayed. It could be part of reminding them to keep the classroom clean and nice, and to respect their space or respect the school. So any kind of, again, that also brings it into being relevant and interesting to them, because it's part of what, their real life is and their day-to-day life. So that is it for the slides. We can go to questions now, or comments. Okay. Hello.
We have some questions from
PGB work in teaching reading. I'm not sure what. Let's keep this to questions about what I presented, and then I can talk about that next time, maybe. How many times is it normal for students to read the text? So 2, I would say, because we're looking for the skimming and we're looking for the scanning. Yeah. If you also want to use the inductive method for new vocabulary, you don't necessarily read the whole thing again, but you read certain pieces of it. But we don't want to have it be, just like with the listening, we don't want to have it be too many times. We want the idea to be, you want to move on and do your productive skills after that. So twice. Have to teach the text from the textbooks. Yes, I understand that. So what you can do from that is you can either shorten it. If it's too high a level for your students, you can take a bit of it and make sure that the information that is there you use, or I know it's a little bit extra work, but if this is what it takes for the students to really grasp it, you can kind of rewrite it to be simpler for them. So I know that you have to kind of use what is the curriculum you're given, but if you like simplify it a little bit, and I've done that, you take something that you think is like, oh, this is a little bit high level, and you just kind of make it a little simpler so that the information that they are responsible for, that is part of the questions. Also, remember that when you are going by the book, you don't have to do every single exercise. So choose the exercises that are the most relevant for the reading. So even if the reading is a little bit on the higher level, find the exercises that will be the clearest for the students to understand. Okay. What should be emphasized at each stage of reading development? Okay, do you mean reading development within the lesson itself, or within the development of a student, like from age 10 to age 17? I can answer either one. So remember, we go from, in the lesson, we go from having it be kind of more general and then going into specific. So understanding about the topic, the idea of the text, and then going into more detail, that is how you should do it within the lesson. At different levels of development, as far as like youth versus older, we want to really introduce that critical thinking the older they are. So the WH questions, and again, the inductive method of trying to figure out yourself what a new word means in a text versus the teacher giving it to you, that's important the older they are. How to look at a text, how to think about it, how to question it. And younger, it's more comprehension. Do they understand what is written on the page? Do they understand if, yeah, did the director say yes or no, good or bad? What is the name of the director? Those kinds of things. And then get into the critical thinking a little bit later. That's a really good question. So in the lesson, yeah, so it goes from general to specific. So talk about the topic, get them interested in the topic, thinking about what they already know about the topic, and then going into kind of more detailed things, and then talking about it with, once they understand those things. And for the, again, the higher level students, it should be more critical thinking, and how they can apply that to other classes, other aspects of their lives. As we said, the Earth Day is maybe how they can help their school, their community, in bringing the ideas of Earth Day every day to school. But for the younger students, just having comprehension and then a little bit of discussion. Good question.
Okay, Pamela, thank you very much. It's my turn to give questions. Okay. In your speech, you mentioned about test takers like TOEFL, IELTS. Yeah. So many students are like failing in reading section, even if they use skimming and scanning. So because you have like 1 hour for 2 or 5 passages, texts. So what do you suggest for test takers? Like to improve their vocabulary, like practice.
Yeah. Okay. So if they already know those test taking skills well, and it's just that the level is I know that those things that they have for the tests is very challenging and the level is very high. They just need to read a lot on their own. That there's no like easy way around that. You just need to do a lot of reading and a lot of exposing yourself to high level English text. So a lot of reading newspaper articles, magazine articles, nonfiction books are really good for preparing for that, because there is a lot of vocabulary that you're not going to get from a conversational class, because it's going to be in those authentic materials that are made for, you know, very if you are at the level of where you are taking those tests, that means that you are competing with native English speakers that have completed high school in America or England or Australia, and they are at a certain level. So you need to get at that level. You need to read what is expected of a high school student of those of that level. So maybe looking at what the high school reading lists are, that would be a good way to start. If you're not ready to really comprehend and read those things within a limited time, then maybe it's not realistic to take the TOEFL that year, and maybe take it next year after you do some more study. But that's a good start. Find out what is required for they have 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade reading lists online, where you can see examples of what is expected from, I mean, you don't have to do Shakespeare, things like that, because that's not the kind of language you're going to be using in college, but that will help prepare you for the TOEFL and IELTS.
Thank you very much. One more, maybe question or comment. Many students visit American Corner for borrowing books, and they ask for easy stuff, like asking to help find a good book for their level. But we don't know their level skills, like English reading.
Well, that's a hard one. Yeah. You can have them take an example of the Common European Framework test online. So I can show you that here. Yeah. So free test to check your level of English. So find out the international exams for English, Spanish, French, German. So A2, B1, B2. So once they take this, check your level of English. Soldiers have been sent in to try to restore in the area. Okay, so restore order. Okay. We a lovely 3 weeks in the south of Spain last year. We took Spain. So these kinds of questions, and they should also have like some of them have voice. Once they get the response, A1 is the lowest, and then A2. The next level is intermediate, which is B1 and B2, and then C1 and C2 are advanced. C2 is the highest. If you can tell them, just take this test. They could take it in the American Corner right there. You can show them on the computer. They can take it. Once it says like A2, then you know that is low level, just before intermediate. And then maybe they need something that is more like for children. And then if they get more C1, then you know maybe this is like high school, maybe 12th grade, 11th grade for, and that's like novels, longer things. But they can also, you know, just take some look at books themselves and say, okay, how much of this, you can ask them, the first paragraph in this book, do you understand 90% of these words? If they don't understand 90%, then they need a lower level book.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to assess what you
idea.
you should what level you should have.
Yeah, it will help us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Pamela. I think we haven't got any more questions yet. I asked what topic to discuss next week. One participant, Sairagul Orozakonova, said she prefers to discuss about project work.
Sure.
Okay.
Great.
I think we discussed this topic long ago.
Yeah, we discussed this a little bit ago. Yeah. I could give it again, or I could do something new, and I could just let you have the presentation if you like. You can figure out.
Yeah, we can do it again.
Okay.
For visitors.
Yeah, we have new ones and maybe new questions. Great.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pamela. Those handouts, yeah, about bridge office, or
Yeah,
you mentioned
the British Council.
The British Council, yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Can you find them on internet?
Just look up British Council.
Okay.
Yeah, British Council resources, teaching English, British Council, anything like that. They will have definitions, ideas, resources. Yeah.
Okay.
They're a really great resource. Yeah.
Okay.
So, project work with the students' textbooks. Okay. So I will need some examples of. I think I have this as part of it. Yeah. How to use the textbook to do some projects. Okay. Great.
Okay. Dear participants, thank you very much for questions and the participation. If you couldn't join our session on time, you can review our Pamela's presentation on our Facebook page. Жақсы тұрыңыздар, орбаңыздар. I hope we'll see you next week. Pamela, thank you very much. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye. Жақсы қалыңыздар.
Жақсы қалыңыздар. Bye.